Pandora's box is about to open wide.
Welcome to another Pandora's box, ladies and gentlemen. It's us, the Pandora's box guys.
Woo-woo.
Hey, Drew is haunted by the long dead spirits of Peruvian ghosts. Drew just thought he could hear weird noises, and we can hear him here in the studio. But it's funny actually because obviously we did that Hexam Heads episode, and it was like people that like touched him or had them in the house, like those weird stuff happened to him. I was just listening to there's a really good I don't know, it's not really a podcast, it's like a Spotify channel and YouTube channel, and it's called Into the Fog with Peter Laws. Shout out Peter Laws, just purely because he just is really good at what he does. Basically he's got like, it's like a supernatural / paranormal channel that he has on YouTube and Spotify, and they're really well done, and he basically tells the story of different supernatural events. And I was listening to his one, fun enough, just like on the way here in the car, and it's like, like Skinwalker Ranch, it's quite famous. Right. It's quite famous both for like UFO activity, but also for like really freaking like Hexam Heads type stuff. I would actually say quite accurately more like Hexam Head stuff, because like how the Hexam Head had like orbs in the garden and that, but then it also randomly had like strange beasts that people would see, and it was almost like they were like haunted by them, and there were things in the house. The Skinwalker Ranch one's like just like that. I really recommend like looking into it, or if anyone listening that's like into their like supernatural, like look into it, because it's really really
What was it
interesting.
called again, man?
Skinwalker Ranch in America.
Ranch.
I think it's in Utah. Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, United States of America.
Oh my.
But yeah, people that have gone there, a bit like the Hexam Heads, and also that's what made me think about you in the Dreads, Drew, is so I can't remember the name of the people, but there were some people that went there to like document, try and document any of like the strange occurrences that happened there. I think it was like a husband and wife, and they saw like a dark sort of figure one night when they were there, and I think they also like said like other strange stuff happened. And the wife took home some like heather, and I think some other like, it wasn't like even like an object as such, it was just stuff from there. Do you know what I mean? She took like some heather and some other bits and bobs, just like I'm trying to look for the right word, like not foliage, but like what I mean?
Foraging.
Yeah, she just picked some plants essentially. Some nice pleasant plants to take back.
Some herbage.
And then just like in the just like in the Hexam Heads one, then even though they lived 200 miles away from the Skinwalker Ranch, they went home, and then like instantly like weird stuff started happening in their house, even though it had like never ever happened before. So she woke up one night and thought she could see like a creature like in the middle of her room, but as soon as she turned on the light, it like went. And then she thought it was like a nightmare or like sleep paralysis or something like that. But then like as she turned off the light and like went back to sleep, she could just like hear something like walking up her stairs, and she thought it must have been one of their kids. But she went out to the landing and there was just nothing there. At that stage, she said she was still just like rationalizing it and wasn't that scared. But then apparently a couple of days later, one of their sons said that they in the middle of the night they woke up and there were like orbs like flying around their bedroom. And the creepiest freaking bit was, she said one night she was the last one up, and she like turned off all the lights and then was just like about to climb the stairs to go up to bed. But there was like a window by the bottom of the stairs that looked out to their back garden, and their house was like one of those sort of American houses that's like in the middle of nowhere in the sticks. And she looked out, and apparently there was this like, this is another weird thing which made me think, because it's like almost like exactly like the Hexam Heads creature. She said there was this like wolf, like essentially like she was describing like a werewolf, like a wolf creature, like a large wolf, but stood on its hind legs, just staring at her through the window.
Damn.
That's
no,
horrible.
thank you.
Yeah, and apparently she said that she just got this like sense of like malevolence from it, like it was almost like this really like evil spirit or something. And apparently it was just like staring at her through the window, and she was terrified. And then it just like slowly just like walked into the trees like at the bottom of her garden, and she went up to like bed and was just terrified, just lying in bed like thinking like, oh my god, is it gonna try and come in the house? And
That'd be sketchy.
yeah, and right, man. And then she didn't say anything to her like children, obviously. But then apparently a couple of days later, both of her sons at the same time had exactly the same like thing happen. Like it was like late at night, and they just
No, thank you.
They just looked out their bedroom window at night when they both, I think they shared a bedroom, and they both should have just been asleep. And then they just saw this creature just like staring at them.
Horrible.
The fact that it was like both of them, I think makes it like a little bit more plausible.
Adds credence
I
to
can
it.
think of much worse.
We were talking, weren't we? about a ghost story that I told you, the Bell Witch fiasco, which apparently is one of the biggest ones in America. We'd not heard
Have you
of
heard
it before,
about that, Drew? The Bell Witch
really
haunted?
good story.
I've heard of the Blair Witch, but not the
Yeah.
Bell Witch.
Yeah.
Really good
It's
story.
not quite as snotty.
The sort of bit
Bell
that I wanted to touch on was one of the first bits where when they first sort of started experiencing the haunting, the guy who was mainly sort of cursed by this Bell Witch, he said that he saw, was it a dog's body?
He said it was like looked like a large black-haired dog, except it had like the head of a large rabbit, which was like a bit weird, isn't it?
And I said to Claire because I read this to Claire on our Mystic Hour, sort of like asked her opinion of the story, and we sort of broke it down together, and she said this was one of the stories that she believes has the most authenticity.
Yeah, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Because obviously she's like essentially our resident paranormal expert. So I think it's just quite interesting for whatever it's worth for who's listening. Claire, who is like a very highly rated clairvoyant, tarot card reader, psychic medium. She says that this is like one of the most, in her mind, one of the most like realistic. Like she believes it.
If anyone would know, I'd trust it to be Claire.
Yeah, she said basically that she believes this one, doesn't she?
Yes, exactly.
Because she doesn't believe all of them.
Yeah,
But
she doesn't believe a lot of them, which sort of adds more like credence to it.
I'm glad that she doesn't. Because that makes because I think you should always go in with skepticism,
definitely,
and then let the evidence convince you.
But she said a really fascinating comment when we were talking about the story on air. I asked her, because the man tried to shoot this weird like animal creature that had a rabbit's head and a dog's body,
rabbit dog, yeah,
and he tried to shoot it, and then it sort of disappeared off. And I said to her, "Do you think that could be what caused the issue?" And Claire just said pretty bluntly, "No, like it was already too late by then. Like essentially, once you've seen this thing, that you're done. Like that's
pretty dark.
It's coming to get
That's
you."
pretty dark.
Yeah,
that's pretty dark.
I thought that when she said it, I was a bit like, "Whoa, that's pretty intense."
I like how random that one as well in the Bell haunting, because it's like it's not very scary. Like the creature, I mean. Do you know what I mean? Like usually, like you think it's somebody would like if somebody was trying to create something, they come up with something scarier. But the fact that it's like it had a large dog's body, which you're like, okay, yeah, that's pretty scary. But then it had the head of a rabbit. Like that's just a bit weird.
I almost think in a way that makes it scarier though. Like the uncanny valley of it. Like it almost looks like it should belong.
That's not really uncanny valley, is it?
A little bit, because uncanny valley is sort of things that are like just off, aren't they?
But I think
if you looked at like a dog with a rabbit's body and it was slightly off, you'd be a bit like, oh, what? That's not like, it's not completely werewolf. Yeah. But it's a little bit like, that's really strange.
Without trying to sound pedantic, I think uncanny valley is specific to humans though. It's like the reason why we find things that are
like a similar thing for like animals.
Yes, yeah. But it's like the reason why we find things that are like humanoid but with like slightly off facial features. So like masks. It's the reason we find masks terrifying. It's the reason why a lot of like horror creatures we find scary, because from far away they almost look human, but then when you see their face close up, you're like, and it like looks a bit off. So that's like the uncanny valley theory.
There's quite like a lot of different ones for different things, isn't there? Like it's a similar sort of effect, but liminal spaces.
Right.
So like if people were to talk about like the back rooms and stuff like that, just things that look slightly off. Like if you were to be in a hotel that had no doors and no numbers and it was just all like the same weird endless place, it would be like a liminal space, which is like gives that same effect as uncanny valley. It's really creepy.
Yeah, like an endless corridor.
Like almost Stephen what's his name, the great horror writer, Stephen King. He has like a great quote about terror. And it's something like, terror is when you come home and you know that every single object in your house has been replaced with an exact replica.
Oh, yeah, does that? Yeah, I mean, even as you said, that made me feel a bit uneasy.
You can't quite even really know what's wrong, but there's something wrong.
Something's wrong.
You don't even really know why it makes you feel uneasy, but it just doesn't sit right with you, does it? I remember when I was a really little kid. This is weird, isn't it? I don't know if have you guys ever done anything like this? Like not necessarily the exact same thing, but something similar. I remember when I was probably about like Evie's age, about like say like 4 or 5. I remember sometimes, and it's not like I believed it, but it was almost like a weird irrational fear. I used to sometimes freak out about the concept that my parents weren't really my parents. So like the concept. So like to add clarity to that. So like that they were my parents originally, but that they'd been swapped. by like changelings.
Replace.
I didn't know that because there is like a changeling in mythos. Obviously, I didn't know I was thinking of a changeling at the time because I didn't know what changelings were. But in Irish folklore, there is the mythos of a changeling, isn't there? The idea that you would have a loved one in your family. I think it's usually children in Irish mythology, and that suddenly they start acting really differently but still look like them. And the idea in Irish folklore is that like this like little monster is like has like replaced, has almost like eaten your child or something, or like killed it, and then it's like wearing its body. And I used
like a parasite.
Mate, I used to think that about my parents. Like, for some reason, I used to just like think, what if like my parents were my parents, and they were just like these weird, they were these like weird creatures, but they just looked like them. And I remember I always used to think it, like sometimes when you're a little kid, and it's still like nighttime, but you like wake up, and for whatever reason, you just like go and walk into their bedroom. You know what I mean? To like get into bed with them or whatever until like the sun comes up. You just like all kids do it, don't they? I think. Yeah, I remember like sometimes if I do that, if I think really far back to my earliest memories, like if like I could hear their voices, but it was in a dark room and I couldn't see them, I'd imagine that they were almost like they didn't look like them.
Oh, that is creepy.
I mean, like,
that is really
but
creepy.
it was like their voices.
That's really good.
I imagined it myself a few times. Like I would look at someone else and imagine that person as me. That's weird. Then I would look at them, and then I'd get this really weird feeling of like, because I would imagine them as I'm myself. Right. And like it just did something weird with my head. Do you know what I mean? It was like I would actually start imagining them like that. That was my hair, like everything. And then it gave me this like really like it just felt like strange because it was like you're actually looking at yourself, like Yeah, I think that's why like most people get quite like uneasy, especially like at first. Like seeing like videos of them or hearing like audio of them speaking. And I think obviously depending on what you do, you get used to it if you do it regularly. But I think everybody's initial reaction is almost like, it's almost like a bit of a recoil. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I think one of the reasons why is it's probably several different factors. But I think one of the main reasons is because it's so unnatural to like listen to yourself or view yourself from the outside looking in. Like that's not natural. We're not meant to do that, are we? We're not meant to hear ourselves the same way we hear other people. We're supposed to only hear ourselves inside our own heads and like see the world through our own eyes. So you see like your hands carrying out tasks and stuff, but you shouldn't really be like seeing yourself from like 10 feet away doing stuff. So when you see that on like video and that, you're almost a bit like, I don't really like it. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather not see it.
We were talking about it with the OPEF concert you went to, weren't we? Because we were watching a bit of it in the studio, and we found like an angle that had you guys on the like video.
We found, it was like an OPEF Bristol gig, and you could just see me, you, and Josh from behind, and it was almost like really comical, like really funny, but also just a bit weird, just seeing the back of us all just...
Yeah, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. It's like really strange. But then when you imagine it in real time with another person as well, it's even weirder. Do you know what I mean? Like not just a video or something, actually seeing a person. Because then you're like, then that's that thing of like, have they like took over my life? Are they just like masquerading as me?
That'd be
like
weird,
a bit like a skinwalker thing, I suppose.
Yeah, like a changeling.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, man. Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I am a sucker for like a supernatural story. I think it's, for me, it's just like the mystery of it all. It's, as I said, I've said it in the past, but it's not even necessary. I don't even necessarily like believe it, or at least not wholeheartedly. I don't disbelieve it or believe it. I just I love the mystery of it. I love the mystery of it, and I love just like the unknown of it and the mystery and the idea of like, what would I have seen if I was there? That element of it,
Do you know what I find like really freaky? We're humans, yeah. So we've been around for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
We when we're talking about ghosts and stuff, it's like relating to like us as a species and that. Like thinking about like ancient evil, like evil that like predates like a human existence, and like the kind of like, if that is true, if there is this like good and evil or like light and dark and stuff, then there are these like, and I suppose like you think like the Balrog and stuff, like so these like kind of ancient forces of evil, like what they would manifest as, they wouldn't even be human, and that would be like that thing of like, I can't remember what it was called, where it's slightly off, as like human thing is slightly off.
Uncanny Valley.
It's like that, like that, but like something that isn't human at all, and that is just this ancient representation of evil. Like that would be pretty. Like, is there actually like creatures out there that are like that, you know.
Yeah, one thing I really like actually. Last week we had Claire on, and we were talking a bit about like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just because me and Claire actually really like Buffy. But what you were just saying then reminds me of, I think the almost like the origin story of humankind and almost like evil / like demons and vampires in the Buffy universe, to me, is almost like one of the best, most intriguing ones. So the idea in the Buffy world, in the universe, is that there are like multiple parallel like sort of dimensions, and some of them are like hell dimensions, and some of them are like, you know, nicer dimensions, and some of them are like heavenly dimensions, you know, where only like almost like these angelic beings live. And that the Earth, in the Buffy universe, Earth used to be a hell dimension, right? But and it used to be like almost like ruled over by demons. But as the humans like started to like breed and stuff, and they started to like multiply, we like slowly started like almost like taking over and fighting back against the demons, to the point where there were so many like humans on the Earth that we were doing such a great job of fighting them. And that's where all this like mythos is of like champions and fighting the forces of darkness and like chosen ones and stuff like that. And that's why like, every culture in humankind has all these stories. So that what basically the demons did was they opened portals to like leave, most of them like left our dimension to go to another hell dimension, of which there are like several. Sorry, man?
To do that. Imagine wanting to do that, like, you know.
Yeah.
I suppose it's home for them. Hell is home for them.
Yeah, but the reason, and then it's really cool because then it explains how vampires came about. It said that like the last one that left, he basically like fed on a human, but then like infused his soul into the human, and then obviously that created the first vampire, because in the Buffy mythos, a vampire is a human's body that's essentially possessed by a demon soul, and it's a bit like a virus, but the only way you can transmit the virus is to like feed on another is to like, if you're a vampire, feed on a human and then let them also then drink your blood before they fully die. So it's almost like this like demonic virus, which I think is a really cool explanation. So yeah, there's like this actual demon who was called like Molokai or something like that, like fed on a human, put his soul into it and then left the dimension. And then that vampire basically started just making all these other vampires, and that's like the ethos of like Buffy. And as I said, there are like some like demons remained in different dark places of the world, but that's almost like how the world got to how it is today. And I always just quite like that description.
That's really good.
I thought it was quite cool.
I feel like when we interpret evil as being human, it almost takes away power from it, whereas if it's sort of like we interpret it as being something bigger than us, something that's lasted longer than us, something that we can't necessarily defeat because it's been around for so long and will be for so long, it almost makes you feel a bit more overwhelmed and a little bit more helpless, which I think is what makes it even more like eerie and creepy.
Yeah, I mean that was another interesting thing last week, because we, you know, talking to Claire about like Charles Manson and Rasputin and that, and I was saying like, you know, do you think there is like a supernatural element to that? Or do you just basically think that these were people that were like, you know, really crazy, but also like very charismatic and stuff like that as well? So that was quite interesting.
I think it's really weird when you hear about say like demons or things that would be bad spirits, bad things that would like want to do you harm and things. That it could be something that's what's the word?
Well, like conscious,
like,
or
like for them, they're doing it like without you realizing or without you knowing. And that's pretty freaky to think.
Like there's this almost like this covert, demonic, like almost like conspiracy.
It's like feeding off you and stuff, and like or you know, trying to disconnect you from your natural goodness or something, and take you into that.
Man, I've looked into that.
Doing it consciously. It's like they're doing it subtly,
subliminally, subtly.
And that freaks me out.
I've looked into that before.
Evil could be like in that way.
There's this I can't remember his name now, but I was like looking into this guy, and he's like a devout Christian, and I don't necessarily believe this, but I thought it was a really cool. Bit of dialogue anyway. I thought it was like a really cool like message or thing this guy had to say. And it was basically his whole thing was like, you know, why don't we see demons today? Why don't we see monsters today? Obviously, there's all these depictions in various religious texts of people seeing demonic entities and blah blah blah, like it throughout the history of mankind, and we don't today. And he was almost like his explanation of why that is. Yeah, as I said, I'm not saying I believe this; it's just interesting. And he was basically saying that, in his opinion, the reason why that doesn't happen is because if that did happen nowadays, like if a demon was to show itself to mankind, then it would have the opposite effect of what it wants. So if a demon showed itself to mankind, people would be more likely to become religious, right? People would suddenly be so scared they would all turn to God. They'd all turn to God and they start praying.
That doesn't give the demon power then.
Exactly. What the demon wants almost is like, for the more people that are going to go to hell, the better. But he was saying, like, in society nowadays, quite often, like things that are really quite sinful are often almost like pushed as like, you go, girl.
Normal.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's like really loose sexual practices, things that maybe back in the day would have been considered really quite like sinful and stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not like a prude, but yeah, like, I guess like the idea that you just sleeping out of wedlock and just like having like multiple affairs, or just like crazy orgies and stuff, rather than almost like committing yourself to like one person, and like the purity and the beauty of that. And obviously not just sexual stuff. It could be all sorts of different types of like quote unquote sin, right? And that, if you live your life really sinfully, if you're disrespectful to other people, if you have the mentality of, well, as long as I can get away with something bad, then I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's obviously like an awful ethos to have. What you should do is do the right thing regardless of whether somebody's looking or not. That's like that shows that you're like truly a good person, doesn't it? You shouldn't just like only be a good person when you think that you can't get away with something. So yeah, he was basically saying all of these things. And saying, that this is why at this point in time, demons don't show themselves to mankind and like monsters don't. And that back in the day, because far more people were religious, they had to get more desperate.
Had to sort of tempt them out of it, whereas we're doing their job for them nowadays.
Either tempt them out of it, or like outright scare them out of it. So they would almost be like pulling out the stops. And he was then going on to say, like, if you look at the more religious somebody is, the more likely they are to have like a demonic experience, because then it's almost like they're trying to do something. They're trying to bash your faith. Basically, they're trying to say like, look, like either scare you or tempt you out of your faith. Whereas
I've had some people talk to me about weird stuff like that, like experiences that they've had with that as well. It's like crazy.
That's quite a scary thought, though, don't you think? Because that's exactly what you were saying, Drew, about the idea that there's like almost like a conspiracy, almost like the idea that there are demonic entities and there is this like underlying ancient evil in the world, and that they're almost like just all lying in wait, or that maybe I don't know, like what they're doing it. Or like they I don't know, can they go invisible? So they're like watching us but invisible, and that suddenly seems super insidious, really insidious, doesn't it?
There was this thing I heard the other day, and it was this guy called Greg Braden. He was talking about evil, and he was saying it was like, what you said about like adultery, or like things like on that level with like sexuality and stuff. He took it even a stage further, and he was like, literally, evil is anything that tries to deny your divinity. So like say like we are divine beings, or like we're connected to like God or source, or we're anything that tries to take you away from the fact that you are a divine being, that is evil. So he was saying like that's the whole thing about like technology and stuff, and like certain things that distract you from the essence of what you are. That is like evil being played out in a really subtle way, and that got me thinking, like, God, like, say like sometimes I notice it like with a baby and stuff, like you're in this family situation, which is one of the most like kind of sacred things that can happen, like bringing new life into the world and that, and then there's times where like I'm focused on other things, so like I just want to look on my phone or something, and I'm holding the baby as well, and it's like that's disconnecting me from this like beautiful kind of like sacred thing. But then all my focus is just scrolling, and is this demon like Come to the dark side. Just deny yourself.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I definitely think, obviously, like I don't think that in itself is a sin, and I know that's not what you're trying to say either, but I definitely see what you're saying. It's like a disconnect. It's like it's trying. It's constantly. It's like and through that disconnect.
That's quite controversial, isn't it? Saying that evil is anything that so that could be something subtle that we wouldn't see as evil.
But
usually.
you can see why, because I mean, what do you tend to see, and what is marketed? What is the algorithm trying to get to show to, say, young men or youngish men? We're not like Bullwinkle's still a very young man. We're youngish men now. Hopefully, but it's, let's face it, you're likely to see like scantily clad women maybe on social media, which is tempting. Let's face it, red-blooded young man.
Oh, yeah.
Let's face it, you see us, and then that's distracting. But you should be paying attention to your family, but your mind's now wandering and thinking of, bootylicious ladies, or it could be something else. It could be some really like almost like random act of violence for some reason on like an Instagram reel. Which is almost like, if you think about it, it's almost like a bit out of place. But that might be leading your head down a dark path, because then maybe you're paranoid about violence, so you're thinking about violence yourself, or just the negativity of seeing different horrible things happening around the globe, all just on your phone. That's quite negative in itself.
It's on X, when it's like it's not censored anymore.
Yeah,
you see all kinds of crazy stuff on that.
Or it could even be, and let's face it, don't get me wrong, I think most people, or at least a lot of people, are mature enough to not let themselves be like so wholeheartedly influenced in this way. But even if something that you would see is like quite innocent, like what if some young lad watched Power, like a program like Power, set in New York City with that great show on Netflix, and then for some reason they just decided that Tommy was the coolest guy ever, and that they just wanted to become a gangster too. And then maybe they would have gone on to have like a more, become a brain surgeon, but instead they decided that the story of Power is so cool, Tommy's such a cool character, they want to become that, and the next thing you know, they become some like mad.
I definitely thought that.
Yeah, like very, yeah. Well, I think that's the thing. It's because it's tempting, isn't it? But it's because it's tempting. This is exactly what we're saying there, and what you're saying, Drew, as well. It's that distraction and that temptation, and that's why it's almost like, and at the end of the day, it's lawless. Being a drug dealer and that, it's lawless. The police can't protect you because what you're doing in itself is illegal. You could end up getting shot. You could end up getting killed, especially if you get
lives, the drugs do you.
Yeah, if you get really deep into it, do you know what I mean? You could get a lot of violence against you, or you could even die. So it's like a lot of these things could lead you down a dark path, couldn't they?
In a way, that's almost what makes it the most like effective, is the fact that it isn't so in your face evil, but it is in the same sense. It's almost what, like, if the snake had said to Eve, kill Adam, it might have been like, well, that's a bit far, this snake's talking crazy. But it didn't. The snake went, have a bite of the apple, this apple looks quite nice, take a little bite. That's the evil that you need to worry about.
That's a good point, Bullwinkle. And I think as well, when you're listening to all these things, I don't think really at the end of the day, I don't think it even matters too much, or at least if it matters to me too much, if, say, the physical aspect of are demons real, is that true or not? Because at the end of the day, I think that if you just took all of these lessons, everything that we're just talking about, and took all of these things into account, and just try to obviously like live your life in like a good way, where you were a good partner, were a good father if you're a father, a good friend, a good family member, a good member of society, the sort of person that's going to stop and help somebody if they're in need, then that can only lead to something good anyway. If at the end of the day, when I die, I go to heaven, then obviously that's freaking great. But if I don't, and I'm just but if it just turns out that is mumbo jumbo, then there's not really any downside to that.
No.
But there is a lot of downside to living your life, as we said, in a way that's easily tempted, going through almost like this chasing the dragon type sinful lifestyle, where it's just it's all sexual deviance, drugs, alcohol, me, I'm the center of my world, that's all that matters. As long as I'm having a good time, nobody else matters. Do you know what I mean? Like that is such a negative, awful thing, and that's so self-destructive in itself. Never mind like whether you're like ruining your soul in the afterlife, you're ruining your life here on Earth.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So what? So
knock-on effect of those around you.
So I think it's like life insurance, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, well, there's no downsides. There's no downsides really to trying to be good, but there's a lot of downsides.
Getting too lost in the mire.
Yeah.
But that thing of though, like, is there actually like a battle for our souls and for our attention? Like that's something that I've been like thinking about, like, you know, or watching videos like you say about, like, it's a lot of like religious videos and things, and like certain people, and I love these NDE and near death experiences.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I love watching those. And then like, but there's also like people that have had NDEs and have like seen Jesus and stuff, and they have like these accountings of like meeting Jesus and that, and I'm like, it's this unknown, isn't it? Like, is there a real entity like called Jesus that is affecting these people so positively? And like, you know, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world that seem to be affected positively by like Jesus and stuff, and then this thing of like this battle, like there's a battle for our souls, and it's through our attention, and it's through, you know, and I'm like, is the devil just this like this evil that's like personified in by like the thing of a devil, that is just wanting our attention and wanting that to break us away from that actual the good life, you know?
It's
the good life doesn't seem the good life doesn't seem flashy. Like the things that are, as you get a bit older,
it's
as well,
a slow burner.
The things that become more important to you and that you understand you get more fulfillment from are like smaller, more acts of dedication and like discipline and family time. And all
it's
that
more
kind
of like
stuff.
it's an investment.
It's not flashy.
It's an investment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Things like family, things like that. All of that stuff is an investment. Whereas McDonald's, heroin, alcohol, cigarettes, unscrupulous sex with some harlot. They're things that will make you feel really good. What in the short amount of time they last. But in the long run, every single one of those things I just mentioned have really bad downsides. You know, if you the quick fix of McDonald's could lead to heart disease and early death, obesity, you know, things like that. At the end of the day, people argue all day long about what's the best diet and stuff. But one thing we know for an absolute fact is actually the main thing when it comes to, say, like health in terms of like physical health is more to do with like weight range. So almost like, to an extent, while macronutrients do matter massively, what matters more is, say, how overweight or underweight you are. As long as you're somewhere in a healthy range, it's a fact that your all-cause mortality will be a lot lower. All-cause mortality obviously means basically your risk of death by any cause. So your all-cause of mortality, all-cause mortality risk is lower than, say, just anybody that's overweight or somebody that's really underweight. You know, to be ridiculously overweight or ridiculously underweight is really, really bad for you. Obviously, if you eat loads of stuff like McDonald's and stuff like that, you know, you're going to have a chance of heart disease and all-cause mortality. Even things like, you know, being overweight, a lot of people just think, oh, maybe it's just like heart disease and cholesterol. Like, your risk of cancer goes up the fatter you are. You know, you literally, your risk of getting any type of cancer goes up. Obviously, you're putting pressure on all your bones. So there's like chances of you getting like bad knees, bad elbows, like joint pain, like all of these things. And then you move on to things like alcohol. Well, you know, like cirrhosis of the liver. Apparently, that's one of the most painful ways to die. Cirrhosis of the liver. Basically,
that just sounds horrible, doesn't it?
Yeah, basically, it's like your liver's your filter for all of that, for all of the alcohol. You know, you put too much through the filter breaks. Your liver fails.
No more.
You know, you get liver failure, cirrhosis of the liver, things like that. Apparently, it's agonising, slow death. You know, you know.
Thank you.
Then you obviously like heroin. I mean, no, clearly not good for you. But you know, loads of people have suffered terrible mental.
Amazing, apparently.
Yeah, apparently it feels amazing when you're doing it. But it leads in the long term to like depression, paranoia.
That's scary, isn't it? That there's something that no matter who takes it, there's something that just the chemical like makeup of it makes you feel a certain way, and no matter who you are, you can't deny how good it feels. So you want it again. Like, that's where that term "chasing the dragon" comes from, though, isn't it? Because every single like the first one apparently is always the best one. And then after that, the next one is almost as good. And then the next one after that, the third time is just... right.
But it's but that's where that term chasing the dragon comes from, because you're chasing the high that you had the first time, but you'll never get it. You'll never get it. So it's this diminishing high every time, and you just want to do it more and more and more, but every time it's a little bit worse than last time.
And like, you'll only feel normal if you take it.
Yes.
Like, you don't feel normal in your normal life. You it's only if you take this
eventually
thing.
Eventually you're taking it just to feel normal. And then how many people with heroin addictions, the chances that they'll commit suicide are obviously like rapidly higher than somebody that's just doesn't do something like that. So, things like that. I mean, there's a good argument. Obviously, we can't say for certain, but I reckon personally, I don't think that people like Kurt Cobain would have killed themselves if he wasn't a heroin addict. I reckon he'd still be here today.
Like super clean,
And don't you think that's
having a healthy life?
Yeah, in itself, that's so sad. We know for like Lane Staley, Alice in Chains, he died of a heroin overdose. He didn't commit suicide like Kurt. I mean, I guess you could argue that he is committing suicide when you're doing it to that extent. But he was just, nobody heard from him in like a week or two. Kicked down his apartment door, and they found him just like on the sofa with like a needle in his arm, just surrounded by frickin' syringes and just heroin.
It's mad, isn't it?
Spent all of his riches from Alice in Chains just on heroin.
It's crazy that a lot of these, I mean, obviously this is going to sound like a stupid thing to say, because obviously it comes down to circumstance and context and stuff like that, but it's crazy that people who are so successful, and you would think almost have it all in a way, clearly are in such a dark place that they originally feel like they need that real high of a heroin kick. Like, you would almost expect the people that most feel that they need that to be the people that are feeling the lowest, because they need that lift back up.
Not Kurt Cobain or Lane Staley.
Exactly. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you'd almost think that if you were like a
troubled souls.
Yeah, you'd almost think that, like, look, everybody thinks you're cool as hell. Your band is one of the most successul bands of its day.
And you've got insane talent.
Yeah, you've got insane talent. Everyone, like, everybody in your scene respects and admires you. You're let's face it, you're a millionaire, which always helps. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'd think, just in terms of life comfort, I mean, let's face it, whether we like it or not, if you're like money talks, and if you have a lot of money, your life will be a lot easier than if you don't. The fact that they were like financially stable, not just for their lifetime, but for for their kids' lifetime and stuff like that.
Generational wealth.
Yeah, exactly. Generational wealth. So it's like, it's mad that like these people were so depressed. And it's like the only thing that could bring them joy was heroin.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, I find it mad that, and there's so many examples of it with musicians and things as well. It's almost like they're just like it's like the up and down thing of like, if you go really hard, you got to crash as well. It's almost like that with like their talent or something as well. It's like they're so intensely good that they're just volatile. It's like it's like a volatile thing. But then you get other people that are talented and that are just insanely talented, and then they're just switched on, and it's not that at all as well.
They're like
not
steady.
That rock. Yeah, like I watched last night. I drove to Gloucester and watched this guy called Mike Dawes live. He is an insane guitarist, like absolutely, like probably I would put him up there, like in the top guitarists of the world, like especially acoustic anyway. And I've known of his music for years, and he did this song of like somebody that he used to know.
Oh yeah,
he did that.
So he did a cover of that.
He did a cover of that like 12 years ago, which is what got him like super famous when he was like 22.
Nice.
And like and it was he plays every part. So he plays the drum part, the melody part, like everything, and tapping all the guitar and that. It's one of those like using an acoustic in like many different ways and things. And he's just been going ever since then, just touring, and I've only just got to see him live like yesterday, and it was insane. And just the pure talent like of just what he's accomplished. He's like 1 year older than us. He's like 35, and he's like just touring around the world and just insanely capable on the instrument, and it was like super inspiring. But someone like that, it's like they're up there in the like best of all time kind of talent wise, but then he seems like a pretty normal, like chill guy as well. Like I was chatting to him afterwards, asked him a few questions about some of his like equipment and stuff, and it's like it doesn't have to be that every musician that's like showing that level of talent as like is kind of volatile as well, but it does happen a lot.
It makes me think of that saying, and I do think there's a lot of truth to the saying. It's like the brightest flames burn quickest, and I don't necessarily even mean like brightest, like they're not even necessarily my favourite, but there's something about them where these people almost are so charismatic and they become successful so quickly, and they almost like turn society on its head.
They get lost in all of it.
Yes, and they usually, it's like the 27 Club, isn't it? It's like all of these people that are in the 27 Club, it's like they all seem to have that. It's like this insane charisma, this insane natural talent, but it's not even like natural talent in like a... Like, it's almost like an indescribable talent. Do you know what I mean? Because on paper, it's hard to describe to people, say, what made Kurt Cobain so different than, say, Eddie Vedder. Eddie Vedder's like the solid that solid guy. We were saying, like a solid musician. He's still alive today. He's one of the original, like Pearl Jam, one of the top 4 grunge bands of all time. Probably top 3, Still going strong. Absolute legend, insane vocalist. But it's almost like an indescribable thing. But for some reason, there was something about someone like Kurt Cobain who, he's no like Joe Satriani on the guitar. His vocal range isn't as good as someone like Jeff Buckley's.
But he's got something.
But there's just something about him. He could write a song that resonated with people and would just for some reason get to the top of the charts. And people just...
It's so cool as well. Like the way I remember, it's like Smells Like Teen Spirit and stuff. Hearing that when I was like so young, there was just something about it that was just like, this is epic.
Man, that was the song that got me into like heavier music. My parents, growing up in the time they did, they listened to things like The Damned and the Sex Pistols and that, which was very like raw and edgy, but it's just different, innit? And it had that super British vibe. It was when I first heard Smells Like Teen Spirit. It was either year 5 or year 6. I think it was late year 5 probably. And then so I was like 10, I guess. And then I remember just like, I didn't know it at the time, but that's almost like what started my love affair with heavier music, because that's almost like the gateway. That's the gateway drug. Do you know what I mean, so to speak? It was like that. I listened to Nirvana. Then I found out about Foo Fighters. Then at the same time, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like new metal hit the scene like a freaking brick. Next thing you know, like around that time, 2000, suddenly Linkin Park, Papa Roach, Slipknot, Korn, Limp Bizkit. I mean, I didn't even some of those bands I wasn't even that into, but the ones that I were, suddenly I was listening to all this grunge with this new metal, and then before you know it, we started school. And then, my Uncle John was like, oh, I'll tell you what, Cal, if you like Linkin Park and you like Nirvana and all this stuff, then listen to Metallica, and then showed me one. And then I was like, oh. And then next thing you know, like you show your mates that, they love that. The next thing you know, like certain mates are showing you Megadeth because you've all got into Metallica. Certain mates are showing you Pantera. And then it's just this spiraling thing. It's a spiraling thing.
Do you think Nirvana's probably the unanimous coolest band ever?
To be honest, I think that's I think that's an impossible question to answer, because I think it's so subjective. I think it's so subjective.
I'm just talking almost on like a grand scale.
Like if you asked
everybody on
the planet.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a really hard question to answer, isn't it? It's a really...
I like the iconography of it. It
is iconic.
It's so much bigger than themselves. You know what I mean? Like Nirvana as a band is... It almost to me like dwarfs all these other bands, and it's so interesting because it's exactly what we were just saying about Kurt Cobain. Why is that? They stand out so much more. It's almost like they were burning brighter without even necessarily doing the things. There's no like real evidence that I can say, oh, this is better.
Apparently that's one of the things that Kurt struggled with himself. Exactly what you were just saying, Bullwinkle. It was like he didn't understand why they were so successful. And I think that almost like bothered him. I think he thought that he was like hoping that maybe they become like really big in the alternative scene. But obviously what they did was become like a #1 hit in like all over the world. Like USA, UK, Europe, like we had like #1 singles, and it was almost like, whoa, man, he didn't understand it and he didn't get it because he grew up.
It shows you that no matter what people think of you, like, unless you think of it yourself as well, it's not good. You know what I mean? Like he was obviously still struggling, like what we were saying about people that kill themselves, or that I think it with Chester Bennington and that as well. And it's like so many people loved the music, so many people loved him and everything, and you're struggling so much inside yourself, like can't accept it, can't understand it, and it's just like, no, I'm just a piece of
did Chester have drug issues, or do you guys know?
He had drink problems apparently.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, because I didn't think he was like a heroin addict or anything like that, was he?
No, yeah, and apparently the night that he died, he'd had nearly a whole bottle of whiskey, and like
that's got to play a factor, innit?
In ages, yeah, and
that's got to play a massive factor.
Because when you're wasted, like I've talked about this before as well, like about like how you just lose all your inhibitions.
Oh,
you
yeah.
do not give it,
especially you, Drew.
Yeah, but that's not. It's not. It is you, because it's a part of you that doesn't come to the surface very much. But when that's in control, anything can happen. You know. Yeah. So even if he wouldn't in his right mind do that, because he's, you know, he had 2 kids and stuff.
Yeah, let's face it. I don't reckon he would have done that if he hadn't drank that bottle of whiskey.
But when you drink the whiskey, you do not care. It's just like whatever I feel in this moment, this is happening.
Yeah.
To bring it full circle, that's almost like,
and to think you could.
That feels like an evil in itself, doesn't it? Like almost the fact like even that they're called like spirits, you know, and like we're saying, it's almost scary in a sense to see a photo or a video of yourself when you are blackout drunk, because in a way that isn't you, in a way that isn't you as a person. It's like something that's taken over your vessel.
I'm thinking of some of the photos of you at my wedding when Bullwinkle was saying that. You actually do almost seem like a bit of like you're possessed. It
is like you're just like a numb body and someone's behind the wheel, and it's not you.
Possessed by a hilarious demon.
And like and you're kind of your consciousness is out the way, so that's like the demons are loving that, because they're not even going to remember this. Let's take advantage of like them now. Let's jump in, like, you know. let's jump in and take this boy for a ride. Yeah. Like, imagine if that actually happens. Like, it's weird, isn't it? It's stuff that we don't know and we can't prove, but imagine if that is actually the case, and like when you get absolutely blind rattoed, like some demons just jumps in you. yeah, it's like you've like the wall is down.
That's why you do stuff that you would never do when you were sober. It's actually someone else doing it.
Yeah, like you've got this psychic barrier or something, and then it just goes down.
I don't normally get this as well, but I've spoke to people who've had these experiences and about being like, they call it like spiritually attacked. And normally, like when you're quite religious or something, it ramps up, or when you start getting into religion, or you start like learning about it, or start trying to follow it, apparently it ramps up loads. And like and it's actually like voices and that, and like almost like you don't know whether it's your own voice or like or something else, but you know, like that nattering in your head. And it's almost like someone was telling me they were just walking around in work and like really feeling like horrible, feeling just like just in a real bad mood basically, but then like looking at people and getting all these dark thoughts of like wanting to like be violent to them and everything, and just like and saying like and like, you know what I mean, and like saying all this, but then like this is crazy. This is a crazy.
No, I was only like, I was just making. I just wanted to make funny eyes.
You just caught eyes at each other for a second.
Then I work with both of you guys, so it's just funny.
Yeah. Oh no. And it, it's never happened to me. This is what I mean. So I don't feel it like with the voices and stuff, but it's like weird to think that could be a way that they attack you is by these like voices.
Oh, what, like trying to put dark voices in, like telling you like almost like saying that you want to do horrible things to co-workers and stuff.
Yeah. So this person who was telling me this story was basically saying that like they were thinking dark thoughts all day, felt really like and all people in work feeling really bad and everything, and then had a dream like that night. Went home and had like went to sleep, was like sweating, like something was going on, you know. And he was saying it was like an attack by this demon that was attached to him or whatever, was just like trying to do the last things to keep control or whatever. And then he had this dream, and it was like and like dark stuff was happening in the dream, and he got like real scared, and he called out to God, and then he said like God came like in the form of a child, a boy, and apparently he called out Apu, which is like father in like Jewish or something.
Who's the Indian guy behind the kiosk in The Simpsons?
Abba, sorry.
Oh, okay. Who is the
Abba,
Swedish?
Yeah, but that apparently is
right.
A father in like
in Hebrew or something.
Like Hebrew or something. Yeah,
either Yiddish or Hebrew.
Yeah, and he came in form of a small boy in front of him, and apparently put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Don't worry, I'm here now." And when he put his hand on his shoulder, his back, like this demon, like flew out of his back.
Wow.
And like, that was what was happening as well. Like in work, he had a real bad back. He had like this real like horrible pain, like with all these dark thoughts happening and everything. So it was almost like a demon was in his back. And like always like, and you know, was feeding him all these thoughts of like wanting to kill people. He knew something was really off. He was like sweating in bed and that. And then had that vision, and apparently it flew out of his back, and he woke up and he puked everywhere. Like,
that's nuts.
That is
sick.
crazy.
That reminds me
almost like this purge.
Yeah.
That
reminds me a little bit of you know, when we had Tracy and Darcy in here, and they were talking about Tracy's mum, Darcy's grandmother's story, obviously a very, very in-depth religious sort of life that she had, about the story about when God touched her on the shoulder in her dream, and that's when she woke up, and she'd been like in a wheelchair for years, and then she woke up and then she could just walk fine, and then she literally just like could walk fine, and then she like freaking like cycled to cycled to her like children's house and that, and then like
running around, jumping around,
yeah,
jumping over the dog.
Yeah, like leaped over the dog and stuff.
Mate, it's mad, isn't it? You hear these stories and that, and it is like, it's just so mental. Like, imagine if that's actually true, and you know, like especially the way things like attach to you, or like let's say like we're saying like spirits and that. Like if something could be like almost like a parasitically like on you, like, and that's giving you all these dark thoughts and that, like,
it's weird, man. I mean, to be honest, never like towards like people in specific, but I definitely get like violent, aggressive thoughts. But like not like all the time. Yeah, he never truly left. But it's like, it's not towards specific people. Do you know what I mean? It's just that like it's like an aggression that's like is in me, but it's like. But I've got it like very well.
But that's beyond human beings.
Yeah, but it's like I've got it like fully under control though.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Like, there's almost like sometimes there'll be like a split second where something will like really annoy you, and then afterwards you might be like, "What the hell? That was like that was nothing to get like annoyed about," or you know.
There are definitely times where I feel like obviously there are times in all of our lives where we are better at controlling ourselves than others, depending on a myriad of factors like stress, sleep, happiness. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things that could factor in something. I think, you know, like 99% of the time I've got under like really, really good control, and then every now and again I might be like teetering on the brink
through the net.
But I mean, like, let's face it, I mean, there's nothing, I haven't done anything like outrageous in like well over 10 years, so I've clearly got it like, you know, very well under control. I'm not like impulsive. Do you know what I mean? I'm not like I can't control my impulses. But yeah, I think that's always. But I think I think it's about trying to like being aware of these things, being honest about these things, and trying to do something like productive about it. So as I said, like, I mean, you know, one of the things that for me, I always say like to me, almost like my gym is like my church, almost like. Do you know what I mean? So it's like aggression is very energetic. You know, aggression is the most energetic emotion, you know. So like, they always say, don't they, like sadness is that there's no upside to sadness, because it actually drains you of your energy, makes you feel awful, and it's really harrowing, isn't it? Like, I think you've always like you naturally feel empathetic towards anybody that you can tell is going through a hard time and they're like sad. But one good thing about aggression is you can hone aggression to do something very, very positive. And this immediately again makes me think about music. I mean, especially certain things like the metal scene, but also things like grunge, rap, you know, like, but also say like working out. You know, you can use aggression, you can hone aggression to do something positive. You know, it doesn't have to be like I'm gonna go and kick someone's head in. That just makes you a freaking idiot, doesn't it? You know, like that's not. I mean, it's not good for you. It's not good for anyone. You're like channeling it into something more positive. Yeah, you could chat. I mean, James Hetfield, he's talked openly about how aggressive he felt when he was younger, but he channeled that to make Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, you know, Master of Puppets, and Justice for All. You know, and you can see when he started mellowing out a little bit as a musician, still was writing bangers, but those first 4 albums especially were so aggressive. But I think for me. I think for me, one of the reasons why that style of music resonates with me is because I feel when I'm listening to that, especially if I'm pairing listening to something like that with, say, working out, which is very sweaty, active, like, you know, you have to put in a lot of intense effort, and the aggression will help fuel, say, a workout. if I pair say listening to like, you know, like some Injustice for All with like a really freaking brutal workout session, that's very mentally positive for me. You know, you know.
I know what you mean with the sadness and the like the aggression thing, because like you can like when you've got that aggression, like it wants to do something. You can still you can still be motivated to do something, like, you know. But sometimes when in the sadness feeling. Because I was thinking, could you channel sadness into, say, like a really like melancholic song or something? But the problem is when you're just totally immersed in the sadness, is you're not motivated to do anything.
That's
it's
the
just
thing.
like this, like you don't want to write a song, or you don't want to like channel it into action. You're just kind of like when, you know what I mean? It's
I feel like you can only write that melancholic song after the fact. Do you know what I mean? So once maybe you've gotten out of like a sad slump or a depressive slump, then in hindsight you can write a beautiful sad song. You still need to take action. You still need to
be able to take action.
Yeah. But I think that like for people that are like, when you're truly, truly sad, when you're truly, truly down, you don't want to do anything. You know what I mean? You don't have any energy. You don't want to do anything. You're just sort of just like, bleh. I
got to be careful of that. I think I've got a bit of a default state with that, of like when I'm not motivated, I can like go down into a bit of a spiral of like not wanting to do anything, but then it's only through doing things that, like, I always remember like Joe Rogan like said something about it, and I was like, wow, like when he was like, oh, do you ever get depressed or whatever? And he's like, I don't have time to get depressed. Like I don't make any time in my day for there to be a moment, because I'm always kind of like doing something, but doing something positive. So like having these hobbies and things like that. So it's like, I think what I've got to get myself out of sometimes is if I'm in a real slump like that, is I've just got to do something, like pick up my guitar or like go for a walk, or like, do you know what I mean? Like, but it's annoying that like when you don't want to.
I think that I would be way more I think I would be way more like that if it wasn't for the fact that for whatever weird reason, just like from the age of like 15, I just was like, I've got like almost like I'm quite like sometimes I almost like think about it. And it's almost like a bit weird in some ways, but obviously I think it's in a good way. I'm really glad that I'm like it with working out, but just almost got like weirdly into it. So it's almost like I've never got out of it really. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there's definitely stages.
Positive habit.
Yeah, there's definitely stages where I'll be into it more than others, but I never like out and out stopped.
It's been a constant.
Yeah, I never really like stopped, and to be honest, I don't even really know why I'm like that. But all I can say is the thought of not doing it almost makes me freak out. Which might sound crazy to some people. I don't know if it might just be because I've been doing it for so long.
So like almost become like a pillar of your life.
Yeah,
like
it's a complete pillar of my life. Yeah. But I think if I didn't have that, I think that I would be more like what you're describing, Drew, with yourself. But I think because I've got that as almost like this cornerstone of my life, don't get me wrong, obviously I definitely get down sometimes. Everybody gets down. We're human beings, aren't we? Like, but it's not like to the point where I won't say, you know what you said about motivation. It's not like, I don't have the motivation to work out today. Like, to me, like, I will work out regardless of how much sleep I've had, how good I'm feeling, how much I want to that day. It's almost like it's just a given. I just have to accept that maybe it's not going to be the best workout of my life. But it's like, but there's so many sayings that I've heard over the years from people that are really like people I look up to in the industry. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no such thing as a bad workout. And obviously what that means is like, look, it doesn't have to be the best workout you've ever done. It doesn't even have to be like as good as usual, but it's better than nothing. You know, it could just be. Yeah. It could just be like if you do 10 push-ups, that's better than doing none. You know, it doesn't have to be this freaking inspirational, like, you know, like crazy like YouTube compilation style workout video where you're like getting motivated as hell watching it, these crazy physical feats.
Up to that commitment. Yeah It's quite interesting as well, you know, like the wrestler Triple H, his trainer for like the last like at least 10 years, probably like 15 years, is this guy called Joe DeFranco, and he's like one of the most respected strength and conditioning coaches in the world. And he really like changed up Triple H's training from like a more traditional bodybuilding style of training to more of like an athletic training. Do you know what I mean? So obviously still lifts loads of weights and everything like that, but it's like much more methodical and much more like tailored specifically to him, and specifically tailored to keep him like healthy
and like athletic, as well as just like looking big, which is obviously more like that traditional bodybuilder style training. It's really good because I listened to Joe DeFranco's podcast and he had Triple H on a couple of months ago, and Triple H was just saying like at this stage in his life, now that he's like in his 50s, he pretty much just basically he'll just almost like pick one thing a day and he'll just do that. So, and because he's really busy, because he basically runs WWE nowadays, doesn't he? So he's like super busy. He's got, I can't remember if he's got 2 or 3 kids, but he's got 2 or 3 kids. He's running this multi-billion-dollar corporation, flying all over the world every single week, or at least over the US. But
it's still going strong then, the old wrestling.
Oh yeah,
better than ever.
Me and Bullwinkle are actually going to watch WWE Raw in London next Monday. How hilarious is that?
Oh yeah,
that's so funny, isn't it?
Brilliant.
That's so good. But he was saying so. Rather than when he was younger, when he used to his bodybuilding training, he used to do what's known as a bro split. So like a chest day and then a back day, and then but then when he first started training with Joe DeFranco, when he was still training in the ring loads, it was more like an upper lower split, or like push pull legs, or like but with lots of exercises mixed in for like general athleticism, so lots of like plyometrics and calisthenics mixed in with the weights and stuff like that, which is also like how I like to train. But he said now he'll just pick something and just do a lot of it every day. So it could just be like, okay, I've got 20 minutes, I'm going to do loads of kettlebell swings, and then the next day it could be, okay, I'm on the road, I've got a spare 20 minutes in my hotel room before I have to go out for this press conference. So he's got some like rubber bands in his bag. He's going to do loads and loads of push-ups and then some rubber band stuff. The next day it might be he's managed to get into the gym, so he might do like some pull-ups and some dip. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just like he's just doing something every day. It's not like but it's not like freaking out about it. Or it doesn't even have to be overly tailored. It's just picking like almost like one thing or 2 things that you can do loads of in like 20 minutes. But if you do that every day, that adds up like so much. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's the idea of like, it's like little and often, little and often, little and often.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I feel like I've almost like started to implement that guilt in my own mind a little bit. Like we were talking the other day, I had my first workout that I've missed of like the year. Yeah. This past week because I was ill.
I've already
and hungover. Yeah. But like at the same time, I think in previous workout cycles or stuff that I've done, I would just be like, you know what, I'm not going to go today. I'll pick it back up tomorrow. But I felt such a level of almost guilt for not going that I was like, you know what, I'm going to do 60 press ups, some shoulder press, some lat raises.
What, just at home?
Yeah, just at home, and just to like get something done.
So you didn't miss it.
Exactly. So in a way, I guess I still got the workout done.
You didn't go to the gym, but you had a workout at home. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I feel like that's the sort of the mindset you need to have, like you were saying, of don't give yourself an excuse, because once the excuse is there, you'll always take it.
Yeah. And as you said, that day, because you were hungover and all the rest of it, you really didn't want to go to the gym. And I think, understanding that we're human, like that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We already said we're only human. You felt rough. But as you said, the fact that you still did something is so psychologically positive. Do you know what I mean? And it's, it's very, very psychologically powerful that, it's just like you just did something. And I think that's quite good as well, because it shows that you don't have to be like extreme. It doesn't have to be like go to the gym
just
or nothing.
Consistent.
Yeah. It's just like, okay, well, I'll just do some push-ups today, and what else have I got on hand? Okay, I've got some dumbbells. I'll do some curls and some press-ups or something. Yeah, or I'll do some shoulder presses and some press-ups, or I think that's a really good thing, because once you think of it like that in your mind as well, I think it's a lot easier to get into the routine of actually doing physical activity consistently, because it doesn't have to be like strict. This is just my routine, and it's either this or nothing.
It's almost like rather than climbing up a mountain, you're doing a brisk walk up a hill.
Yes, my friend.
Like it's still something that maybe you've got to put an effort to do, but it becomes a whole lot more doable and a whole lot more attainable.
Yeah, and also I think when it comes to something like looking, because it's a lifestyle change, isn't it? Working out, it's not like one of those things that like you can do it for 3 months and then you're done for the rest of your life. Yeah. Like it has to be like a lifestyle thing. So in that regard as well, it's like the tortoise beats the hare. Yeah. I think where a lot of people go wrong is they get moments of super inspiration and motivation, but it's unsustainable. Fall off the wagon.
That's me.
and then you just don't do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. I'm taking all this you're saying on board, because it's like it's just creating that creating the habit and creating a kind of even if it's just small, but having the commitment to it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never have. My whole life, I've never consistently done it, you know. So it's like, I wonder if it will.
Yeah.
Like kind of etch in at some point, and I'll like make the thing. But I suppose there's walking. I do walk every day, but it's not the same. It's still some exercise.
It's really good, and I definitely don't think it should be understated how good it is. I think in general, the majority of people don't walk enough, and there are so many health benefits to walking. You know, walking would be what's known as steady state cardio, and there's loads of benefits to it. One of the main things I think you want to do as a human being is just move as much as possible. And when you're walking, you're moving. So it's hugely beneficial. And
I definitely get out of breath every day because it's a big hill. So I like walk up that. So I'm definitely, my heart's going by the time I'm at the top. So I know that I'm kind of like raising my heart rate a little bit, but it's not physical. Like the weekend just gone as well. I did that bushcraft weekend, which was like
amazing,
fun.
man!
That's
so cool.
It was really cool. Yeah, like
where was that?
Just with, it was somewhere about half an hour away from Ludlow, 45 minutes away from Ludlow, in a different county. I think we were in Hereford, but just rolling hills, beautiful, really nice scenery and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But just camped out, but we were making fire, and we had to. There was two groups. One group had to make a table just out of your surroundings, and the other group had to make a tripod, a 3-stick tripod thing to hang the pot over the fire that we made to
cool, man.
Cook the stew on and everything. So it was just from your surrounding stuff. So had to do that in teamwork and that, and then it was then we made a snare. And we also made a torch, you see in movies, the torch with the burning end and that. It's
so that's
how
cool.
you would make one of those out of your natural surroundings.
Did you use tree resin or anything like that, resin from a tree?
Yeah, so it was basically hazel, but like a fresh hazel branch, really long straight one, and then you split down the end and put some small twigs down it, so it kind of opens up the top of the stick, and then you put it was called fat. It was called fat sticks, and they were heavily things that are at the base of the roots and that are just full of resin, and they're dried out, and then they're called fat sticks. So you put them in, and then pine cones and things that have a lot of resin and really dry stuff all that into the thing that you've created at the top.
So cool.
And then you can burn that, and it just is a real slow burner. So doing that, but in the process of doing all of that, I had an axe and a knife, and for hours we were just hacking away and building things and doing.
Sounds
all this.
amazing, man.
It was very physical, and I was thinking, God, this is the most exercise I've had in a while. I'm just swinging this sawing branches, huge bit things, logs for the fire and things like that off some dry wood there and that, and I was I had a pump on and stuff, and just in my forearms and that, and it was and by the end of the day, after we'd done everything, when we had that stew that was cooked over the fire with and the roast potatoes were put in the coals of the fire as well, or in the embers of the fire to cook those, and I was I just felt like I deserved that food, and it was just this amazing. And I was and everything felt so normal and so right about this situation of working with other people, but being out in nature, doing lots of physical stuff, doing that all day, and then sitting down and just around the fire and having a chat in the evening, and then going to bed. It was so natural, and it was I need to do more physical things like this.
Yeah,
even
man,
if it's not working out. It's chopping things.
That's why I love gardening so much all spring and summer. And I know that Josh said that he feels the same. It's it's the idea that you're just doing so much activity sort of in the fresh air. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think it even really sort of to an extent matters what it is, as long as it feels productive and you're outdoors. You know, it could just be you could be you're building something in your garden. As a result, you need so many bags of sand and cement and timber, and just lugging that around you know, in the garden while you're, you know, and stuff like that. It's just
something so
feels
satisfying
really
about
good.
building something as well. Like when you're actually doing it to like create something as well. It's like this really natural, just like endorphin raising. Like I'm getting exercise, and I can see at the end of this that I've created something.
Yeah, I think like visual stimulation is so important as well. Yeah, so it's like, or it could just yeah, definitely, yeah.
I have actually heard that, you know.
But it's like, oh man, it definitely is. But I think like, beings. You know, if you look at like, say, your garden, like I did the first sort of like blitz of my garden like a couple of Sundays ago. You know, obviously now it's like getting into spring and stuff. And well, it is spring now, but it wasn't at the time. It was just like a week before or something. But yeah, and it's just like, you know, trimming back the borders, giving the lawn the first mow of the year, and just everything about it just seems so productive. And just like looking at it afterwards, and there were like certain bits, like, do you know what I mean, like some building materials that I left over from certain little things I was doing on my property that I sort of like I moved them all about, and even just that, do you know what I mean, even just sort of like organising all of that and then mowing the lawn and then cutting back some bushes and stuff, and it just felt so nice afterwards. I was like and then the whole time I was just slow cooking a leg of lamb in the oven, do you know what I mean? So then afterwards you just have all this like nice slow cooked lamb, like melt in your mouth lamb, and it was just, yeah, as you said, Drew, it was just, it's just that thing of like, not only have I done like all this nice stuff in the fresh air, but it's like, especially when it's something like that as well, like you feel like you're almost like doing it for your family. I feel like it's really because you're making your garden look nice for your family, and it's like you're creating a really nice space for your child to run around in,
creating a nice space.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I think that's so important. Do you know what I mean? The idea of just being like, your garden's just left to overgrow and you're just like lying on the sofa indoors just eating Doritos, like, can't be bothered. Like that, to me, that's almost like hell. I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that, you know? Like,
I'm so glad you didn't see me a few days ago.
Well, you're right at the moment. Well, you don't have a garden to sort out at the moment, do you? So you've got like a super low maintenance lifestyle.
It's really random. Like, we're going to see a place tomorrow.
Nice.
But just renting again. But like, it's come up, and it's someone that Meg's mum knows, and it's like a 2-bedroom like barn conversion that's all like been done with like an open plan dining room and kitchen and that, with a garden and stuff. So I'm like, mate, I'm really hoping we like it, and we can just like,
mate, it sounds amazing. I love barn conversions, man. I freaking love them. Too. Yeah. Whenever I like stay in one, like an Airbnb or anything like that, I'm always like, man, because I love open plans as well. I love open plan spaces.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah. Yeah. There's this place nearby. There's this place called Border Oak, like a company here, and I never thought I would like new build stuff, but like you see this Border Oak company, and they've got really old traditional values and like the way that they do things. So they oak frame build everything like oak framed and everything, and like kind of barn conversions and stuff. But it's all brand new, so like all cutting edge technology of like the way that they design it, and it's like insanely beautiful.
So it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't know there was companies like this. So that's like in the future, like we're gonna wait until we can afford a Border Oak house, and then just like carry on renting for a bit. But yeah,
I think that's one of the things that was really nice about your old flat in Bridgewater. It was almost like a barn conversion, even though it was a flat. Yeah, like in terms of how it seemed inside. Do you know what I mean?
All the oak beams and that.
Yeah, I think that open plan style as well. I think that I just think they're better living spaces. I think that houses in the UK and a lot of places in Europe are too segregated.
Compartmentalized.
Lots of little rooms. And there's something I find almost a bit depressing about that, to be honest with you.
There's this place we saw.
It's like a jail.
It was like, we went to look at a place like, and it was an Edwardian house. So like Edwardian houses are really nice looking. They're like a bit different to like your normal like Georgian like just square and stuff. They've got like more parts to them, and they look more like just interesting in that, like and they've got stained glass windows in and things like that, and it's like really cool. So we went to look at this Edwardian place, and they have like high rooms, like high ceiling rooms and everything. And I looked round it, and it was like really expensive and stuff, this place, and on the outside it looked amazing, but when you get in, it was like you say, like you had lots of rooms. You had like 4 floors and loads of rooms, but every room was quite small, and like really high ceilings. But I'm like, what would I use this room for? And what would I'd rather have less rooms, but like more open plans, so you're actually using like 100%. Every space, and like the dining room and the kitchen like being a big like thing together, and then like just a living room downstairs. That's all I need downstairs really. And then like Yeah,
that's what I was saying. I think it almost encourages you as a family as well to spend less time together, and I think that's really bad as well. I think that's really bad. I think whenever it's like I went away. Funnily enough, you saying you went to Herefordshire. I went to Hampshire over the weekend. We stayed in near the New Forest. We stayed in this little forest called Blackwood Forest, which is very like near the New Forest.
I've heard Blackwood Forest.
Yeah, we stayed in like a log cabin in the middle of Blackwood Forest. And like again, it's like that whole like log cabin is exactly the same thing as like a barn conversion. It's like it's an open plan. So the living room, the kitchen, and the dining room is all just one big room. But it's so nice. You know, it's so nice.
Yeah,
I
love that.
There was big windows, so you could see just nothing but like you could see all the trees outdoors. There was a hot tub outside, and then one of the days me and Evie were in the hot tub in the morning. There was just like a deer walking around in the woods like 20 feet from us. It was amazing, you know. He's
good looking.
In the hot tub, you're just like listening to all the birds. There were loads of blackbirds who were like who were like the bards of the bird world. For people that don't know, they're sort of like a lot of people think that blackbirds, myself included, I think have the nicest bird song. I was like watching these little blackbirds just making these beautiful sounds, and all the other birds in the forest as well. You know, watching these little funny squirrels running around. And it was like so calming. But then, just like indoors, you know, I said that open plan living room, kitchen, dining room, it's so sociable. So the only time that you're segregated from each other is either if you're having a really quick wash or if you're going to bed. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
The rest of the time you're all together, and that's so good. I love that.
Yeah, man.
I think that should be as standard. But what we've got as standard is places with lots of little rooms. And I don't like it. I just don't like it. It bothers me.
It took me going to see that place to like realize that. I was like, no, and I know what I want now. And then we got back and I drew a picture of it of the house, and then we realized this Border Oak company, and like that we'd seen some just outside of Ludlow and stuff. And I was like, that's literally it. That's they do that. They've kind of like.
I remember back in like 2018 when I was looking for a house before I'd settled on the one I live in now. There was this freaking lush barn conversion. It was like halfway between Bridgewater and Glastonbury on the A39. And to get to it, you basically, if you were going from Bridgewater towards Glastonbury, you'd like turn right and you'd like drive down this little hill. And then you'd end up in this like tiny little village. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like halfway between Bridgewater and Glastonbury. So, you know, great location wise for me anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like pretty close by to family, close by to work, close by to lots of places I like though. Good accessibility to Glastonbury Street, Wells, Bath. You know, lots of nice places you can get to quickly. But it was just a bit too spenny. And I think about it to this day, man, because it was lush. It almost looked like a Viking longhouse because it was quite it was quite like a long barn.
Yeah.
And it was like this big open plan space. And I remember even thinking like I would literally just have in this corner, I'd have like a squat rack, a bench and stuff. So I'd have like in the open plan, I just have the gym in the open, so I could like be chatting to. Who,
that's pure Tommy. That was like his one.
Yeah. So you could like be chatting to your missus while you were working out, or like whoever's round your house. Super sociable. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not even like you're missing out, like having to choose between working out and spending time with anyone. Like you're there, you know. And it was just like this little stairs in the corner that would take you up to this mezzanine floor, which just had like a couple of bedrooms. And I thought that's ideal. That's all I want. But it was just a bit too spenny. And I think about it to this day. Sometimes I just think about that place and I'm like, man, that was lush.
Pull the plug.
I just couldn't. Do you know what I mean? Just like physically couldn't. But like, it was such a nice place. I do love those sort of builds, man.
Definitely better. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just sort of going back to what we were saying earlier a little bit, because funnily enough, I listened to this story the other day, and you were saying, Drew, about like, people that like Jesus comes to them in their dreams, or God, or whoever it might be, some sort of religious thing, or in some cases it might be, darker. It might be like demons or whatever. Have you guys ever heard of the Lady of Fatima story? Nope. This is a mental one. So this was in the autumn of 1917. This was during the First World War. Wartime. And this was in Portugal. At the time, people in Portugal were, understandably, like obviously on edge. The war threatened to sort of overwhelm Portugal's borders. But this is a mental story where basically people, a mass gathering of people, all say they saw the Virgin Mary. All but it wasn't like a couple of people. It was.
I think I have heard about.
I think it was thousands of people. Right. I saved a little bit of it. Sit here. I took a screenshot so I can tell you guys a little bit of it. It says
incredible.
70,000 people gathered near a rural town to witness an appearance by the Virgin Mary. 70,000 people. I think it started.
70,000 people.
I think it started with two brothers. I think I'm right in saying that. I think two brothers saw what, this like glowing bright lady, and they were like, oh my god. And then it started with these two, and then it was like word of mouth got out very, very quickly, and then it ended up with 70,000 people were all there and all corroborated this event. They said that they were all just there, all just watching the Virgin Mary. Like,
that is mad, isn't it?
Yeah, but look into that story because that's really interesting.
What was she doing? Like, what was this just in the middle of a town? She was just like sat there.
Do you know what? I can't remember. Do you know what? I want to say off the top of my head. To be honest, I might just be completely wrong by saying this. So, please look into it yourself, guys. Anybody listening? I feel like it might have been near like this, like a cross, like a big public cross or something like that, and that these kids might have been there, maybe even to pray or something like that. But then, and I think it was something as well, like the kids could see them. And the adults couldn't at first, but then when they held rosary beads, suddenly they could see them, or it was something like that, which I thought was interesting as well, because then that's a lot of they say that things like animals, certain animals and children can see things that maybe that we can't see because they're like more pure, and they're more in tune and in touch with certain things. That's why people that believe in ghosts say that kids are more likely to see ghosts than us. You might be with like a dog or a cat in a room, and the cat or the dog might be like staring at the corner with like wide eyes, and you're like, what are you looking at? But they're like acting like there's almost like a person in the room, and you're like, what? It's almost like a bit creepy. But yeah, I think it's like that whole thing. The idea that the kids could see them, but then if an adult hold a rosary beads, which especially in Catholicism, it's like a religious thing, isn't it? Rosary beads. It's like a religious artifact, a bit similar to like crosses or holy water, or whatever. Then that would almost like allow them to see it.
Yeah, I wonder how long she was there as well, and when she sort of disappeared.
Man, it became such a massive thing that the Pope of the time canonized like the two kids that saw them the same way that in the Bible there's like John and Paul and so like I guess the idea that they will go down in history.
Wow.
The same way that like Moses, God came to Moses or whatever in the burning bush and all that stuff, and different people say that they got visited by God, or who was it, Jesus' disciples that saw him rise from the dead and all that stuff. They will basically go down in Christianity forever.
That's incredible.
As like biblical characters. They've been canonized in the law of Christianity officially by the Pope.
That's wow.
And I think it's even been like it was like the Portuguese government accepted it it's like on record officially as like a real event. Like, crazy, and in 1917 70,000 people whatever saw the Virgin Mary, and this actually happened. Yeah.
That's incredible. I don't even know what to say to that. That's how mind-blowing that is. That's just mental.
What me and Bullwinkle go on, man. Go on.
I was just going to say, I think of things like that, the potential of things like that happening now, and or something happening. Have you all seen that? I think it was a SpaceX rocket, that thing, and created that
blue mental thing,
But people were like, oh my god, what is it and stuff. But I think there's technology now to really fool some people into thinking something supernatural is happening. I think you could potentially even holographically create an event that shows aliens come down, or Jesus or something like that, or that Virgin Mary thing. Back then there wasn't any technology for it, so it's more believable. But now I think almost that something could happen happen that could fool a lot of people. Like, have you seen that Chinese thing where they've got like 1,000 drones in the sky, and it's just crazy. And it can just do all this like crazy. Imagine all of those with like a projector on, or like holographic, like, and creating this image of like Jesus coming out of the clouds or something. Or, like, people would freak out, you know. But could it be like a terrestrial thing that's like creating it, like, you know?
I think you like to think that you can trust your own senses and you can trust like what you see you can believe, but we're now in a time that you can't. Like, if things happen, there could still be other, I don't know, forces at play that make it so that the thing you've just seen isn't actually what you believe you've seen.
It's quite like paranoia inducing, really, isn't it? Like, you know, the idea that you can't trust your senses. You know, because really, you'd like to think that, well, if you see something and you hear it and that, then it's real. Simple as that. Yeah. You know,
because like one of the biggest things in like is like the second coming of Christ and stuff. And it's like, imagine if like that happens, but it's not actually. It's like, it's just a show.
It's just like an AI hologram.
Yeah,
that's been programmed. Like, right, take all the depictions of like Christ through all the different texts throughout the world, and then make yourself look like that, and then talk like the texts tell you should talk like. You know?
Imagine if that happened. That'd be mental.
That would be crazy.
Or like loads of spaceships come down or something, like, you know.
Yeah. Oh man, that'd be mental. War of the Worlds. But yeah, that one. If you want to look into that story more, the one I was telling about the Virgin Mary, it's called The Lady of Fatima. Fatima spelled Fatima. Really interesting. Really interesting. The Lady of Fatima.
Did we ever speak about the Weeping Madonna of Syracuse?
I feel like I've heard about it.
I've heard of it, and it's the tears of blood come out of her eyes.
Was that the Virgin Mary?
It was just making me think of that story we were just on about. I don't know if we talked about it on the pod before, but that's a mental story as well.
The idea that a statue could be bleeding blood out of its eyes.
I think it's like a painting, isn't it? But it's so creepy.
Oh, is it a painting?
I think so. I think it's a painting of the Virgin Mary, I believe. I'll try and see if I can
people say
find
that sometimes its eyes cry blood. Was it like a one-off event, or does this apparently happen like regularly, or what?
It's been such a long time since I've read this story. I'm not even sure.
It's alright.
I just thought it was pretty mental. I was like, whoa, a statue.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. Sort of changing the subject a little bit. Did you know that the largest ever T-Rex skeleton has been found?
What?
Oh, nice.
That's so cool.
Yeah, man. They've called it Goliath. To put a bit of perspective, so there's the two sort of largest T-Rex specimens that were found before. One of them was called Sue, and one of them was called Cope. One of them was given the name Cope. The reason why they were both sort of, it was hard to say which one was bigger out of the two, was because Cope had denser bones, which would have made it, you know, probably was like thicker, more muscular, but Sue's bones were longer,
right?
So it might have been longer and taller, but Cope was more like muscular and might have been heavier. But this Goliath has got longer bones than Sue and thicker bones than Cope, and they've named him Goliath. And I think it was the largest T-Rex ever. And in the last sort of like couple of decades, there's been several different species of meat-eating dinosaur that have come out that have sort of put into contention, you know, was T-Rex really the largest one? Is it Giganotosaurus? Is it Carcharodontosaurus? Blah, 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 blah. But this one is like the biggest meat-eating dinosaur ever. Nice. And I thought it was quite interesting because this is only like, do you remember like a couple of months ago I was telling you that, like, you know, paleontologists have obviously like say quite openly there could be like the chances that we'll ever find, obviously the upper limit of a species in terms of like size or whatever is like so slim, because take T-Rexes for example, there would have over the course of the T-Rex's entire time on this earth, you know, there would have been like billions of T-Rexes, you know, in like the millions of years that they were alive before the K2 extinction. So the chances that like there's only like a very, very tiny percentage that would have been in a good enough condition to fossilize. So the idea that, like, you know, that we're not like pretty much guaranteed we're not going to have the biggest ones, but the fact that we're like they've just discovered one which is the largest ever is
they could
so
even be like
cool.
Just 3/4 of the size of the biggest ones. Could even be like half the size. We wouldn't even know. It's mental.
Exactly. It's like a lot of
Where did they find it?
Let me quickly have a look for you. Goliath T-Rex. But as you can imagine, I freaking love this, guys. I was like, this is amazing.
It is cool.
Goliath is being hailed as a potential record breaker in terms of size. It was discovered in South Dakota back in September, so really not that long ago, really, like just several months ago. So it's as I said, longer than Sue and thicker than Cope. They reckon that Goliath would have been as much as 8.7% more massive than Sue, which is quite a lot, really. Almost 10% bigger. Do you know what I mean? That's quite a lot. Goliath is considered the largest T-Rex ever. They reckon judging from the bones they have of it, its body length would have been about just over 13 meters long.
Jesus.
So what's that in feet? 13 meters in feet. So that's over 42 feet long.
Oh my god.
That's actually like staggeringly big, isn't it?
I think that's crazy.
But I think that's one of those things that you wouldn't appreciate until you saw it in person. Especially when you bear in mind it's not just the length of it, it's how wide and massive the head would be and all the rest of it. You know, that's like truly colossal. But yeah, I was like super excited about that when I heard about that. Super excited.
That is really cool.
Another thing that I thought was really cool, which I was just reading about the other day, in terms of paleontology, because it's a bit like what we were saying about the supernatural, and why I love supernatural stories. It's the mystery of it all. Paleontologists, basically through doing research on how much percentage of animals fossilize worldwide due to being in the right environment to fossilize. They think that humankind will, at the moment, have only discovered roughly 1% of all the animals that have ever lived on Earth.
Wow.
Only 1%. But don't you think that's insane? Don't you think in itself that's even spinny? That's almost like trippy to me.
That lets your imagination go so wild with what could have existed.
Think about all the mental animals that we've just talked about on previous pods, whether it was like Daeodon, that like hell pig, or Megatherium, giant ground sloths, short-faced bears, all the different dinosaurs and sea creatures and those ancient massive dragonflies. We've talked about Quetzalcoatlus, that largest pterosaur that was like larger than some planes, and the fact that even with all of that knowledge, we've only discovered about 1% of all the creatures of the creatures that ever lived on Earth. Like, it makes you wonder, like, we're barely scratching the surface. Like, what sort of mental animals have lived on this Earth that we have no idea about?
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
There was like big so cool. Land octopus. That's what if I had to imagine an animal, that's what I want. Octopus. Yeah, like almost it looks a bit like a big weird spider, but it's actually almost a bit more octopusy and got like.
Have you guys heard about that terrifying ancient crocodile that used to live in Australia? But it was like a land crocodile, and it had super long arms and legs, and they reckon it could have ran like as fast as a horse, but it was like a crocodile. So it would have just been like, because the thing that's like almost like, Jesus. I guess, comforting about crocodiles is they are one of the scariest. Yeah, they're one of the scariest animals on the planet, and the reason I say that is I think what makes a creature deadly to humans. It's like how high is their ability to kill humans? Well, it's very high. Because, the biggest saltwater crocodiles and Nile crocodiles can get 20 foot long, even in some cases over 20 foot long. A large man is like an average, a decently sized man is like 6 foot, right? These are animals that are over 3 times larger than a large man, much stronger, have one of the highest bite forces on Earth. So basically, as soon as it's bitten you, it's hard, very, very hard to get out of that. They also death roll, which mean that, they can rip off limbs easily, and then they could very easily drag you into water as well and then drown you before eating you, right? So their ability to kill you is very, very high. But obviously what's comforting is unless you're in a country where they live, like Australia or Africa, and unless you're near a water source, you don't have to worry about them, do you? If you live in like a city in Australia, you're not worried about the saltwater crocodiles that are live in the coast.
No.
And if you live inland in Africa, you're not worried about some Nile crocodile. The Nile. You're not worried about some Nile crocodile, are you, in the Nile?
And even like, let's say you're on a golf course in Florida, and a gator's just turned up, and he's, you could probably outmaneuver it.
Yes.
Realistically, if you're fit and able, you can probably get away.
And
from
also,
it.
you'd be told if it was a golf course that had gators, I'm sure you'd be told that, or there'd be some sort of warning sign, so you wouldn't get within, like, say 15 foot, 10 foot of the watering hole. Let's face it, like, if you lose a golf ball, you lose a golf ball. You just don't worry about it, mate. How expensive is a golf ball? But I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I think it's something like Andrew Sarkis or Andrew Sukas or something like that.
Quincana.
Is it?
Is it Quincana?
Quincana. Oh, it might be. There might, to be honest, there might have been more than one. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more.
Insane. I'm just like looking at pictures and it looks like crazy. Just like like a crocodile, but just with longer legs. So it looks more like a gecko or something, but just massive and crocodile-like.
Put like land crocodile Australia. Quincana. Look how big it was as well, Bullwinkle. So it was like as big as like a large crocodile today.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I can see that. Yeah, compared to a man,
that would have no trouble eating you, would it?
No. It's almost like that's a horrible thing though, that they could just like run really fast on land. Measuring between 3 and 9 meters in length and weighing up to 200 kilos. These predators only died out 40,000 years ago, so they would have interacted with early humans, it says.
Wow.
So our early ancestors would have had to have put up with it. Yeah, Quincana fortirostrum. Wow, so cool. Man, Australia just knows how to make animals that want to kill you. I'm pretty sure, I think we talked about before on the pod as well about megalania. The ancestor of the Komodo dragon? And they basically were like Komodo dragons, but way freaking bigger. I'm pretty sure they lived in Australia as well. So I think there would have been a time when you would have had essentially giant Komodo dragons, land crocodiles that could literally just like run you down and eat you. That's terrifying.
This would have been at the time where you wouldn't have had a house or anything like that as well. You might have had a cave if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's sorry, I'm a blurry phone. That's like a depiction of a megalania compared to like an average woman. Can you get that? Can you get that, Bullwinkle, for the people watching? But yeah, like look how massive that is. And like we know that Komodo dragons, I'm sure its temperament would have essentially, because it was essentially just like a massive Komodo dragon. I'm sure its temperament and behavior would have been exactly the same or pretty similar. And we know that they are just such cold-blooded creatures, aren't they? It's almost like, I always think when you see like a Komodo dragon kill something, it's almost like a bit scary because of how cold it is. Like you see pictures of it just like killing like baby goats and stuff like that, and it's it just seems like brutal, just absolutely brutal.
It's like a human when they've had too many spirits.
Yeah,
someone's taken them over. Yeah,
man. I was going to talk. Go on, man.
I was going to say I saw a ferret the other day.
A ferret?
But like someone had it. Someone had it as a pet, and I hadn't just. I might have seen one like years ago, but like I was drying my tent out when we got back from this bushcraft thing.
Right.
And I did it up at the Wycliffe because we haven't got a garden, so it was a real beautiful day. So I just hung it up in an oak tree, like, and just let it dry for a bit.
What, and just chilled out by the oak tree?
Yeah, and like Meg went for a walk with Roops and like and the baby and stuff. And this woman came over and she just said, and she'd picked it up because she said she'd been walking all the way around, but she had like a ferret with a little harness on and a lead, and it was just where she was walking around like a dog and that. But this thing was so cute. It was about like that long, and it was quite big for a furry kind of like. And I love seeing animals like out of context that I felt it with the spider monkey when I saw it in Peru as well, when they're like really affectionate with you, and I just held this thing and it kind of put its little head just on my fingers like that. It was like resting its head like its chin like that, and I was like stroking its head in that, and oh mate, it was so cool, just like this random little like ferret.
Do you want a ferret now?
That is nice.
Yeah, I kind of do. I like animals.
I like ferrets. I like ferrets.
And that spider monkey as well. When it came over, it was like really big and had that finger on the end of its tail and was just kind of like chilling on me. And there's something really cool about that. But I can't imagine it with these kind of animals of the past. I'd definitely run and hide.
Yeah, I can't imagine it with a megalania or the land crocodile that runs.
Imagine imagine like riding the land crocodiles and like hooking them up and you're putting this thing around their nose. So like they do with crocs when they like close their mouth and they can't open them, and they imagine doing that with like some land crocodiles and just like riding them around.
I always think that's quite interesting with those like with crocs, because they've got one of the strongest bite forces, or maybe even the strongest bite force in there.
They got a lock and key system in their jaw. Right. So like when they close their mouth, they can lock it to the point where pretty much nothing could open it. Which is
weirdly,
mental.
They've got very weak ability to open their jaw, which is why even humans, who obviously are very much weaker than crocodiles overall, you can hold a crocodile's like mouth shut, and that's why you only have to like duct tape a crocodile's, a couple of rolls with duct tape, and the crocodile just can't open its mouth.
It's crazy.
So it's mad, isn't it? I mean, it's a good thing, really. I mean, it like helps us out a little bit at least, doesn't it?
Step us from a land crocodile.
Yeah, man.
/ horse.
That would be quite an epic thing to ride into battle, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
A land crocodile.
Yeah,
and then like when you get it trained enough, you can take the end off its mouth, so it will just go crazy on people that you go into battle with. That
would be something quite good to like take inspiration for that, to like write like a fantasy novel. Say like there'd be like a species of like creatures in the fantasy world that you came up with that rode these. Because let's face it, all fantasy novelists, even the OG Tolkien, he took a lot of inspiration from real things in history.
Yeah.
Whether it's like the languages or the people or whatever like that. Do you know what I mean? A lot of it is based on on like real world. So
yeah.
Random fact to finish the pod. Did you know that sperm cells carry traces of stress which their fathers go through? So your child can inherit unseen worries and anxiety based on...
I wondered where they came from.
Yeah, weird, isn't it? Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Yeah, recent research suggests that a father's stress can leave biochemical imprints on his sperm, potentially impacting his children even before they are born. Traditionally, science has focused on the inheritance of physical traits like eye colour, height and disease risks through DNA. However, this study uncovers a deeper layer of inheritance, revealing how a father's stress might be passed down to his offspring. The study highlights the concept of epigenetics, the field of research examining how environmental factors such as diet, trauma and stress can change gene function without changing the underlying DNA sequence. This process acts like molecular switches, turning genes on or off and influencing various biological processes, including brain development and disease susceptibility. Crazy, isn't it? Researchers analysed sperm samples from men, discovering that those who experienced high levels of childhood stress had distinct epigenetic markers in their sperm. These changes were evident in small, non-coding RNA molecules crucial for gene regulation, particularly those associated with brain development. Additionally, differences in DNA methylation patterns, which affect gene activity, were found near genes involved in early neurological growth. Significantly, these molecular imprints remained despite other lifestyle factors such as smoking and drinking. This finding suggests that childhood stress can leave a lasting biological legacy in a man's sperm, raising profound questions about what else might be inherited and whether this cycle can be broken. Interesting, isn't it? I remember.
Do you know you said about some genes being turned off and on? Like, can have we got technology to actually do that?
I think we do with some things, but not everything yet. Because, like this suggests, we don't even know the extent of how. Do you know what I mean? Of like what affects our sperm yet. So this is quite a new thing, showing that like stress of men can be passed down literally into their sperm. But I know that already. Apparently, if you're like super rich. It's the sort of thing that probably like super rich people do in California. You can like give your kid blue eyes or give them,
that's insane,
make them like have like blonde hair and blue eyes. Do you know what I mean? Like you can just turn that gene on in your like embryo.
I was telling you the other day about the strawberries I had. Yeah. They were from California.
They were white, weren't they?
White strawberries.
It's always Californians, isn't it?
Yeah, they were vanilla / pineapple flavoured. And they were strawberries. And they were like cream. Nice? And they had like, they were alright. They just tasted a bit like a strawberry, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if they can do that to a strawberry, what can they do to us?
Original wild strawberries were like quite small. Did you guys know that?
That makes sense.
They were only about the size of like a raspberry. If
I've seen wild strawberries about,
and they're quite small, aren't they?
Yeah, tiny.
But you think nowadays you get ones that are like freaking. Some of them are huge. That's all just like genetic modification and like breeding and.
What plant is it that didn't exist at all? Is it cauliflower?
Broccoli. There's lots.
That's crazy, isn't it? We've just like genetically modified, literally playing God, creating life.
I think that's where we come from. Back along. I
Cabbage.
think we were genetically modified humans.
Yeah.
I think at some point something created us like a broccoli.
Like in Prometheus. That's like the idea behind the Prometheus and the alien thing.
I think
the idea
it really
that
makes sense.
There's those creatures called the
missing link.
it's like the idea that there are these creatures called the engineers, and that they like went to Earth and they put a bit of DNA in like the water, and that was just enough to get like to start the single-celled organisms on life, which eventually led to all the creatures that have ever lived on the Earth. That's that sort of idea, isn't it? It is a fascinating one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they basically just kept modifying a cabbage.
That's insane.
I think originally, essentially, the broccoli's like great grandfather was like a cabbage, and that they kept tweaking
so cool.
until eventually you end up with a broccoli.
So cabbage is almost like the elder. Cabbage is like the sort of origin veg.
Yeah, I remember when I found that out, I thought that was cool because I thought it's something you don't think about, is it? But then as soon as somebody says to you, "Well, have you ever seen a broccoli in the wild?" You're like, "No, I haven't." But like you just assume that it's from somewhere, don't you? Like, and then it's like, actually, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, obviously there are a lot of things that do just grow in the wild, but yeah.
It's like all the crazy weed strains and everything you get now.
Yeah.
Like oranges weren't orange originally. Oh, not oranges, sorry. Carrots weren't orange originally.
Purple.
They were like...
Were they purple? Like a bit like a turnip?
Yeah, and they had... The reason they've got orange is because we put loads of vitamins in them.
Oh, smart.
It was for like... Maybe it was for like sailors or something to get them like to stop them getting scurvy and stuff. I don't really know. Or maybe not. No, that doesn't sound right.
They used to give sailors oranges.
It was for like scabies or like rickets or something like that. I remember talking about it in science.
I know that carrots have a ridiculous amount of vitamin A in them, and that's why they used to say you can see in the dark if you eat carrots. And apparently there is actually some truth to that, because vitamin A is really crucial for eye health.
I'm sure that's it. And it's also like if you've got like rickets or something like that, then you're vitamin A deficient. It's something like that, but that vitamin A has been added by us.
I think so important to try and get in like a wide variety of vitamins and minerals, and just to sort of make sure you're filling in those blanks. Just don't live off chips, people.
That's it, man.
Right, we're gonna have to leave it there, folks. Thanks for joining us on another Pandora's Box. If you don't already, please give us a follow on Instagram. Give us a follow on YouTube and Spotify. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff would mean a lot to us if you did, and hopefully won't take too much out of your time to do so. We love you. We'll see you next time for some more PB shenanigans. We didn't even touch on today all the crazy stuff with the pyramids. Have you guys heard about that? So we can save that till next time. That's nuts, isn't it? Giant structures apparently going 2 kilometers down underneath the pyramids in Egypt.
Find out what's in there.
Yeah, so we'll do. I mean, I already have looked into it quite a bit, but I'll look into it even more, and then maybe we can have a good hour-long sesh about that next week.
Hell yeah!
Cheers, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye.
Cheers.